So in the assignment, if you visit it, you'll notice that towards the bottom, we give you a snippet on how to use switch case inside of a template. Right? A switch case allows you to take a look at an attribute, and depending on the value of that attribute, decide which content you want to display. Right? So let's look at there it is. Right? So this is an example that we give you that as we're iterating over the widgets, right? We could take a look at the type of the widget, and depending on the value of that expression, if it's a heading, then we can display display a heading. If it's an image, then display an image. Or if it's a YouTube, display a YouTube. All right. So let's use that technique. Let's come in here, and so here what we could do is use a div and decide that if ng switch that if the widget type, okay, if it's equal to heading or capital heading, right? Then we would like to render the headings, okay? And if it's type YouTube, then we'd like to render the YouTube iframe, and so on and so forth. So to do that, we can select from many templates here. We can say that ng switch when we're going to compare. Oh, sorry. ng switch on this. Sorry, on the type. We're going to switch on the type. If the value is heading, then we're going to do something. If it's instead is an image, we're going to do something else. If it's YouTube, we're going to do yet something else, YouTube. Right, and I think the last one, if it's an HTML, right, we're going to render different things. Yes. So if it's a heading, right, let's we can choose that we want this to be H1, and the content that we want is inside of the text, right, inside of the text. So we can say widget.text text. Okay. If it's an image, I believe the URL of the image is inside of widget.url. So let's render that. For now, let's say widget.url. Okay. If it's YouTube, I believe yes. We'll do that in a second. Yeah, we'll do that in a minute. If it's a YouTube, we would like to. The only really thing that is of interest in the YouTube is also the URL of where we can find that YouTube widget. And for the HTML, I believe it's also the text. Okay, so let's try that. If we render this, notice that indeed we have the H1s being rendered if they're headers, or the URL if it's an image, or the raw HTML. That's not exactly what we were expecting, right? It looks like it's escaping the characters. We were hoping to be a legitimate paragraph, an actual paragraph, as opposed to being interpreted as raw HTML. So that's another header, and that's a YouTube URL. Okay. So let's focus on each one of these one at a time. Okay. So let's focus on this first one, the headings. All right. So let's do that. So the heading, what we'd like to be able to do is more or less the same thing, right? Depending on the size of the widget, we would like to either display H1, H2, H3, H4, the different sizes, right? So let's do that. We can have here again a nested switch, it's like nesting a switch case within a switch case, right? So here we could do another switch, and we can switch on the size of the widget, right? We can say switch again, switch on the widget.size, and I want it to be H1 if the value of that size is 1, I want it to be H1, right? Or if it's if this is size 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, right? There should be the equivalent sizes in there. Okay. So let's try this, and when we render it, we'll notice that indeed we have Gizmodo size 1, and the other two are size 3 or 4 maybe, and size 3 or 4 down here. Now, if you inspect these, right, you'll notice that the actual content for this first widget, let's put this maybe on the right hand side. The actual content for this H2, notice that it's the only thing that actually made it into the DOM, right? The other 5 templates are not there. Okay, same thing with the next one, right? The second div here, you'll notice that the only actual content that made it in here, right, is H4. The other ones didn't make it in there, right? So what Angular is doing is that it's taking this content, and this actually never makes it into the DOM, right? It grabs this, right? It creates it compiles it, right, and creates an object model that then is being added following the rules of the switch case, right? So only H1 will be added, or H2 will be added, or H3 will be added to the DOM at the end. Okay, all the other things don't make it to the DOM. It's not like they're there and they're just not shown. It's that they're never actually added to the DOM. Make sense? All right. All right. So that's heading. Let's now focus on the image, and the image is just a little bit more involved. So I will do that in a separate video.